Listen, if we don't have that animatronic hippopotamus and John Cena in drag singing nursery rhymes, the scene's just not gonna work. Alright, we're gonna have to move a little ahead of schedule. Alright, what was I talking about?
As I said in the last video, Ocarina of Time was a mega hit. If people weren't talking about Final Fantasy VII in the late 90s, then they were talking about Ocarina of Time. So the question is, where the hell do we go from here? Making a direct sequel to one of the most beloved games of all time is not like dusting crops, boy. In fact, many video game studios still struggle with this to this day. You can't please everyone. But considering the landscape of video games at the time, you would probably think they would just make another game using Ocarina of Time's formula, with some tweaks and some quality of life improvements, but still giving the fans a similar experience that doesn't try too many new things.
You fool.
Yeah, this game would be a bit of a departure from what we've been accustomed to, and has quite the development history behind it. After Ocarina of Time's release, Miyamoto's team wanted to continue to use the engine they created for the game by making an expansion using the added power of the Nintendo 64 disk drive. It would kind of be like a second quest with remixed dungeons, which would later become Master Quest. But as we've already been over, that thing was a complete failure that didn't even make it out of Japan. But on the other hand, Ocarina of Time's dungeon designer, AGL Numa, thought that Ocarina's dungeons were fine as they were and wanted to use the engine to make an entirely new game instead. Miyamoto then responded, "Fine, but you have 1 year, bitch."
Well, maybe not that exact wording, but you get my point.
So the new Zelda would be made in under a year, and according to Al Numa, development was not very pleasant. Ideas weren't working out, deadlines weren't being met, they kept having to reuse assets from Ocarina of Time, and the game was almost completely cancelled at one point. And while that sounds like a disaster, it ended up breeding a game that wasn't great despite its limitations, but because of them. This is The Legend of Zelda: Majora's Mask. Our story begins with Link traveling through the Lost Woods on Epona a few months after the events of Ocarina of Time, in the Child Link timeline. Okay, maybe I should actually explain this. When Link was sent back in time to relive his lost childhood at the end of Ocarina of Time, it created 3 different timelines. A Child Link timeline where Majora's Mask and Twilight Princess take place, the adult timeline, which we'll get into when we talk about Wind Waker, and a third where Link lost to Ganondorf, which really doesn't make sense because no other fight in the series have this effect that splits it. The timeline is stupid, okay? The opening tells us that Link is searching for a close friend who helped him on his journey, which is very heavily implied to be Navi, who just kinda left at the end of the last game for some reason, and spoiling this now, we never actually learn where she went or why she left. But Link gets jumped by an imp in a strange mask known as the Skull Kid, who decides to steal the Ocarina of Time and Epona. Link tries to give chase, but he falls down a really trippy hole to find the Skull Kid waiting for him at the bottom. After a short talk, he then turns Link into a Deku Scrub. Why? Because as we'll find out through the course of this game, this imp is a bit of a dick. The Skull Kid, now having completed his mischief, runs away, leaving one of his fairy companions behind. This fairy is named Tattle, who after being separated wants to get back to her brother Tail. Get it? Tattle and Tail? Tattletale? Link finds himself in a clock tower where he meets a man who is only known as the Happy Mask Salesman, who has got to be one of the creepiest motherfuckers in video game history. The way he moves from position to position without in-between animations is really unsettling, and he clearly knows way more than what he's letting on. He tells Link that he can help him turn back into a human if he can get the Ocarina of Time back from the Skull Kid, and while he's at it, get back the mask the imp is wearing as it actually belongs to him. But there's another catch. We only have 3 days to do it. He doesn't say why we have a time limit, but it doesn't take a large amount of detective work to figure it out. It turns out the moon of this land, which is called Termina, is slowly falling towards the town, and in 3 days it will crash into the planet and kill everybody along with it.
Oh my.
So after playing hide and seek with some small children and finding strange hands in the toilet— no, seriously, what the hell is this? Link confronts the Skull Kid on the final day, mere minutes before the moon falls. He gets his ocarina back, which causes a flashback, which is the only appearance or mention of Princess Zelda in the entire game, as he plays the Song of Time, taking him back to the first day. He then goes back to the Happy Mask Salesman, where he teaches him how to change back into a human, so that's good. Just one issue. We didn't get his mask back. It turns out the mask he wanted us to retrieve is called Majora's Mask, which was used for hexing rituals, but because of the destruction it caused, it had to be sealed away. So now it's our job to travel to the four corners of Termina, release the giants that reside in each dungeon, and save the world in the matter of 3 days. When you really boil it down, the plot isn't that different from the last two games. The world is fucked, get the thing to save the world and do it. But what really separates it is all the subtext. We're not in Hyrule anymore. There's no Ganon, Zelda, maidens, sages, there's not even any mention of the Triforce, which is so weird considering all the previous games that came before it, but I think it really works. This game might have the same engine and assets, but it is going for a very different tone than Ocarina of Time. It's always got this feeling of hopelessness, depression, and eeriness. The last game could be creepy and emotional, but it was always relegated to specific parts, while it is all over Majora's Mask. The moment it really clicked for me is when you meet this swordsman in Clocktown, who on the surface seems like a pretty tough and no-nonsense kind of guy. But if you go into his dojo during the final 6 hours before the moon falls, you can find him cowering in the corner of his back room crying about how he doesn't want to die. Like, holy shit, that's really fucked up, but that's what makes this story effective. Majora's Mask takes its premise very seriously. Like, these people are going to die, and everybody in this town has a different response to their inevitable death. Some are scared, some are sad, some don't care, some refuse to admit the moon is even falling, and some don't even know what to think. It's a pretty realistic depiction of what would actually happen if something like this occurred. And all this makes not only the best cast of side characters in any of these games, but also the most interesting world.
And that's all without talking about Majora's Mask's most significant addition, the 3-day system.
You see, Majora's Mask runs on a clock, which is at the bottom of the screen at all times and is always ticking down to the moment the moon falls on the 3rd day. The only time that time doesn't pass is when you're in the menu, and this whole system completely changes how this game is played, to the point where it's something that not everyone enjoys, and I kinda see why. It's really stressful being constantly reminded of how much time you have left, but honestly that's why it works. Termina is filled with timed events that can only be done at certain times, and there's something incredibly satisfying about planning out your day and completing it flawlessly. And that sense of accomplishment just simply wouldn't be there if the clock was absent. And it's not as bad as it sounds. There are songs you can use to slow down time to give yourself some leeway. You keep plot important items so you never have to complete dungeons again if you've already beaten them. And the only punishment you get for missing an event is having to get it on the next cycle, which some people might see as annoying, but I think it really helps with immersion. Everybody in Clocktown has a schedule they follow at all times, and it creates characters that feel like real people. And it makes you feel really bad when you help somebody only for it to get reset when you go back in time. Alright, let's actually talk about the side quests. I know it's weird that I'm talking about the side quests so early, but that's because Majora's Mask has the best set of side quests in any video game I've ever played, and to be honest, it's not even close. They are the reason you play this game. They're so strange, fun, interesting, depressing, and sometimes annoying, but I'll talk about that in a bit. Most of them either award you with a mask for your collection or heart pieces, and I hope you like collecting heart pieces because there's a lot of them. But the rewards are not the reason you do them. You do them because they're really fun and they make this world and its characters feel real. The best one has got to be the Romani Ranch side quest. The Romani Ranch is usually a place you can only visit on the 3rd day in the cycle, and when you do, Romani looks pretty worse for wear, and her sister Crimea looks pretty upset about something that happened but won't talk about it. When you gain access to the ranch earlier in the cycle, you can see that alien ghosts invaded their ranch to steal their cows and abducted Romani along with them. And with that information, you can help fight off the aliens with Romani to save the ranch. And afterwards, you can help Crimea fight off bandits with your bow to protect her milk cart, and it's creepy, disturbing, and fucking awesome. And most of the other side quests are just as great, like helping these ladies figure out a new dance, getting this Zora band back together, marching with these chicks that turn them into roosters, and of course getting Anju and Kaffy back together. This is a very long quest that will take you an entire 3-day cycle to complete, and watching them reunite just mere minutes before the moon falls is heartwarming and also heartbreaking because you have to immediately reset the cycle to save yourself. Now this quest is great, but it does kind of highlight one of the issues with the time travel, as there's a lot of waiting. You can only use your ocarina to travel forward in 6-hour intervals, so when you have to wait till like 3 o'clock or something, you kind of just have to sit there like an idiot so you don't miss it. And I hope Hyrule's alright. And I will admit, not not all the side quests are fun. My least favorite is easily the shooting gallery minigames, as the analog stick is really fucking inaccurate, and you have to get a perfect score for all the heart pieces. And I swear, there is no strategy for the bomb shoot game. It is complete luck. There's a trading quest, but it's not nearly as interesting as it was before, because all it involves is taking these title deeds to these business scrubs, unlike how varied the quest was in Ocarina of Time. And while that game gave you the best sword in the game, this one only rewards you with heart pieces, but I guess it's nice that it rewards you with 4 of them instead of 1. Alright, while on the subject of rewards, let's talk about masks. Mask collecting is a huge part of this game, and it's my favorite thing to do. Not only because I love completing side quests, but because what these masks can do is really fucking awesome. Well, most of them. I don't think I've ever used the Mask of Sense. Like, ever. Like, not even in this playthrough for this video. I think it sniffs mushrooms or something. I don't know. I don't care. Some of them are kind of just for show, like the Gorman mask, or for progression, like the Gibdo mask. But some of them are incredibly helpful, like the Bunny Hood, which is my favorite because it makes Link run twice as fast, and I use it anytime I can. There's also the Stone mask, which makes you invisible to enemies, and because of that, makes this stealth section a complete joke. But hey, I guess it's better than the cramped hallways of the last game. And then, of course, there's the transformation masks. Throughout the game, you'll encounter people whose souls need to be put to rest after they die, which is really fucked up the more I think about it. After you do, you can obtain a mask and can transform into their race, and everybody thinks you're them, which is even more fucked up when you think about it. Imagine you knew someone who turned out to be a completely different species that was wearing that person's face as a mask and passing themselves off as them. But nonetheless, these transformations are awesome. The Deku mask doesn't get a lot of utility as it becomes less useful as the game goes on, but it's still really fun to use. It can skip across water, blow bubbles, fly through the air, and drop Deku nuts. Then there's the Goron mask, which on top of making you incredibly durable, lets you do this roll move, which is the fastest way to travel in the game. It's even faster than Epona, who I never use, because why would I? Look at this thing go! And then there's my favorite, the Zora mask, which makes Link a fucking Olympic swimmer. Like, Jesus, he's a goddamn dolphin with this thing. It also lets you sink to the bottom of water, completely getting rid of the need for iron boots. You know what, while we're on the topic, let's go over improvements that have been made since Ocarina of Time. Probably people's #1 complaint from the last game was Hyrule Field. It was too big and there really wasn't that much stuff to do in it. And while it never really bothered me personally, I can kind of see where people might take issue with it. Majora's Mask almost completely eliminates this with Termina Field. The field is much smaller and is structured more like a compass, with a different area in each direction. And traveling around is so much easier with the Goron Roll, Bunny Hood, and much improved warping with these owl statues that also save your game, which is not that confusing, guys. It's a quick save. Yeah, they word it weird, but it's not that hard to understand. An improvement I don't hear a lot of people talk about is Tattle. If you remember from the last video, I said I thought Navi was kind of a bland character as she didn't have much of a personality and was kind of just there to tell you where to go. Not only is Tattle less annoying, but she's far more of an interesting character. She's a lot snarkier than Navi. At the beginning, she only helps Link in order to get back to her brother and makes it clear she doesn't care about him at all. But as the game goes on, she warms up to him and even apologizes for giving him a hard time. It's not amazing character development, but it's definitely character development, which is more I can say for Navi. Can we stop doing that? I get it. I'm gonna die. Alright, dungeons. Now, Majora's Mask has only 4 main dungeons, which is not a lot, especially when compared to the 8 of the last game. This was definitely due to the short development cycle, and while there's not a lot of them, the ones we do have are some of the best in the entire series. Woodfall Temple is pretty simple, definitely more complex than the first 3 dungeons from Ocarina of Time, but it's still kind of basic. There are some really fun puzzles here though. I like the puzzle with the wheel in the center of the room that you have to light with an arrow. And it makes good use of the Deku form as it's the only mask you have up to this point. It's not my favorite and definitely gets outshined by the other 3, but it's still very solid. Snowhead Temple is definitely where we start getting a lot more complex. It is very big and has a fuckload of floors. It's kind of like the Ice Palace from A Link to the Past, but much more enjoyable. It really makes good use of the Goron form, and I love this puzzle halfway through where you have to find different ways to get around the dungeon in order to knock sections out of this pillar to get to the boss. It's so creative and shows how well designed this place is. The ice physics can go fuck themselves though. The Great Bay Temple. This seems to be the one that a lot of people hate as it's another water dungeon like the Water Temple, but this one is way better simply because of the Zora form, which is much better at swimming in combat. It revolves around this cylinder in the center, which you have to switch the direction of to make it to different rooms, along with activating switches to get water to go where it needs to go. It's confusing, but it's the good kind of confusing, the kind that makes it satisfying to figure out. I will admit, getting around can be kind of annoying, as if you go in the wrong opening, you gotta circle back to try again. But it's still a really fun dungeon, and they just keep getting better. And finally, the Stone Tower Temple, which is my favorite, of course. But in tradition, because it's my favorite, getting to it sucks. I'm actually not talking about Iconic Castle, as this place can be its own dungeon. It's got puzzles, enemies, and even a boss at the end. No, 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 I'm talking about Ascending Stone Tower. In order to do this, you have to constantly play the Elegy of Emptiness to make statues to press down these switches, and it's just really fucking tedious. It is definitely the weakest part of this game. Doesn't help that these statues are fucking creepy. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Ben. But other than that, it's just a really solid dungeon. I really enjoy the gimmick of the whole temple being flipped upside down, making you have to completely rethink all the rooms. And here you get the light arrows, although it's kind of disappointing that all the dungeon items are just upgrades to the bow. I mean, I guess most of the items were changed to just be masks, so it's not a big deal, but it does kind of make the rewards kind of samey. Alright, it's time to talk about the ending, and buckle up, this one's a trippy one. So after freeing the last giant at Stone Tower, Link finally confronts the Skull Kid at the top of the clock tower like at the beginning of the game. But this time he calls the 4 giants who try their best to hold up the moon, and they actually succeed just before it reaches the surface. The Skull Kid passes out, Tattle reunites with Tail, and all seems alright. Oh, well, that wasn't as hard as I thought. What the fuck? Yeah, it turns out Majora's Mask was sentient and controlling the Skull Kid the entire time. The mask then uses its power to force the moon down further, with the giants struggling to hold it up before Majora attempts to escape. Link and Tattle decide to follow the mask into the moon, and this is where it goes from weird to trippy. Honestly, I just shouldn't have expected anything else. So we can walk up to the tree and speak to these children who are wearing the masks of all the bosses we fought in the game. And if you examine them a bit, they seem to resemble a certain other creepy motherfucker we've met already. They even ask you if you're going to be a mask salesman, and it's like, what are you? Sitting under the tree remains Majora, who finally tells us why he does what he does. He does it because he thinks it's fun. He sees everything like a game and causes chaos to make the game more interesting. That's just fucked. If you collected every mask in the game and did all the optional dungeons, he will give you the Fierce Deity mask, which absolutely pisses all over Majora. But I'll tell you what, if you don't use the mask, then this fight is actually a really good final boss. He's actually decently challenging, as he takes 3 different forms. But after defeating his 3rd form, Majora is finally defeated, and the moon stops falling, giving this screen, which is incredibly satisfying. The mask salesman gets the mask back, almost sad that it's lost its power, and all I can say that this man is clearly a threat to society. Link and Tattle go their separate ways, as I'm guessing he's going back to search for Navi, as he kinda didn't get to do that before. And the game ends showing us all the people we've helped and their improved lives. And that was the Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. Can you tell I fucking love this game? Majora's Mask has got to be one of the most unique video games I've ever played. The feeling I get from it is something no other piece of media has ever made me feel before. It's honestly kind of hard to explain. The closest thing I can think of that's sort of close is the original Dark Souls, and even then it's not quite the same. The atmosphere, the world, the characters, the 3-day system, the mask collecting, it's all just so great that I can barely put it into words. Like, I love Ocarina of Time to death. I really do. But Majora's Mask is a completely different beast to me. To me, this is more than a video game. It's an experience, and it's one I think everyone should at least try. It took a fuck ton of risks, so much that its ideas would never be revisited again, and they are gonna alienate some people. I definitely wouldn't recommend this as your first Zelda game. No. Play Ocarina of Time or Wind Waker first, but when you do, come back to give this one a shot. It is really something special and something I don't think should be forgotten. But that's all the time I have today. Thank you everybody so much for watching. I'm not done yet. Subscribe!